In the previous video, we start taking a look at the color replacements. Now we're going to check a little bit more in depth some advanced techniques in the color replacement tools in ColorGATE. We saw how to replace these greens over here by another print value. But what if we have to change this for an LAV color? What if we need to match one thing that we have to measure with the I1? The problem is that here we don't have any color on the file because this is not defined as a spot color. So one solution is sending back this PDF to prepress so they will fill it with one spot color. But we could also just open the PDF and take a look with a tool like this focus inspector to the value that is being used for filling this area. In this case, 56.8099.20. Okay, once we know the color, the CWK color that is forming this thing, we can just add one replacement like this. We add a new entry and we specify for the color to replace one CWK value because we could be picking RGB numbers if we know the RGB value on the file, or grayscale numbers, or spot colors, or CWK. I know that this CWK it's 56.8099.2, and I want to replace this color by an LAV. And I'm gonna measure the LAV with my I1. So I'm gonna replace this color, for example, for one cyan that I have here. I'm gonna measure it. So here I have the replacement made. I hit in OK, OK, OK. And then this green will be replaced by this cyan. Okay, it's true. I need to know the value on the file, or it needs to be defined as spot color, but it can be made. If I don't know the value in the file, or this is not a spot color and I need to replace this area by a color that I'm measuring, I will have to use abstract profiles. We will be covering abstract profiles later on. But this replacement has been made in a solid flat area. And sometimes the colors are, like in this case, gradients. So this file, for example, has two Pantones, Pantone 368 and Pantone 877. That is this gray and this gray here. Okay, and I'm making replacement for the LAV value. Normally a replacement is made just like this, measuring the 100% of the color. So for example, if I want to change this green here for the blue, I'm going to measure this color. So if I enter in the properties of the job, I go to the color table, I select this Pantone, and I say I want to change this color, and I'm going to measure the color, and I'm going to measure the color by one color, this blue here, same as before. Then I'm replacing this Pantone by this LAV color because this is the ink that I want to simulate. And the software will do in an automatic way the calculation of the rest of the colors. And this is assuming 50% will be half of 100%. But sometimes this is not what is happening. So I'm going to duplicate this job. I'm going to copy the job here. And I'm going to add more information to this replacement. So if I go to the color table and I take this replacement that I have just made and I edit the replacement, making a double click or selecting this button. As you see here, I have add color sample. What is add color sample? Add color sample is going to add a different amount of the ink. So for example, let's imagine I have also a sample of the 50%, and I can be adding more. So I can add the 25% or I can add the 0%, so I can add as many points as needed, and I can be removing also as many points as needed. So I can sample a full gradation of the color to be replaced. In this case, I'm gonna measure the 50%, sorry, I'm gonna measure the 50%. So let's, for example, think then 50% is going to be this color here. So I say I want to measure the 50% of my cyan. Now 50% of my cyan is this light color. The cyan is shifting in color to this color here. So when I made the replacement, this 50% will be taken into consideration and the replacement will be made considering this 50%. So if you see these colors here and these colors here, take a look at this area here, are different because I have also introduced the value of the 50%. So if you make a replacement, you can make a replacement just by 100% of the LAB, or if you want to make a more precise replacement and you have samples with different amounts, different 10%, 20%, 50%, you can enter all this data for making the replacement. Okay, we have seen how to make a replacement. For example, like in this file here that we have replaced these greens by an LAB. And here we have the replacement that we have made previously. This is one LAB. But if we check the print value, that is this print value here, that I can check with the picker, I could change this print value by making a replacement here, or in a much more simple way. If I just go to the replacement itself on the file, here I'm replacing this value by this LAB. I can select this LAB and editing the replacement, hitting this button here, convert to device color. If I hit in convert to device color, this will be giving me at the end the value that this LAB will be generating through the ICC profile. So this is the value that will be sent to print. And I can change this value if I want to modify a little bit the thing. So if I want to put a little bit less of magenta or whatever thing, I can here change the numbers in an easy way. This gives me more control over the print value that I will be sending to the file. I mean, if I want to avoid the use of black or whatever thing, I can do it this here through this button here. Here I will reset to the original thing, so I can flip back between print value and LAB, that is the color that I'm measuring. Once I display this thing, I can measure in LAB, or if I want a much more accurate replacement, I could be measuring in a spectral. A spectral requires an additional module, and I can make replacements not just by LAB colors, I can make replacement by spectral colors. So if I select the spectral, I can measure one color. For example, I'm gonna measure this red here, and I will be getting not just the LAB, I will be getting the full spectrum of the color. And this replacement will be made in a spectral way. The replacement made in a spectral has more precision than the ones made in LAB, and they are considering also the transparency of the ink. So if I add several amounts of the ink, including from 0% to 100%, and I made the measurements in a spectral, I will get the super precise replacement of this color considering everything. This is also what I'm getting if I have the Pantone Live feature on. If I have the Pantone Live feature, and right now I'm not logging in Pantone Live, but you can log in using your Pantone Live account, and then you have access to the Pantone spectral values of all the Pantone colors. This can be set up here in Options Pantone Live. In Option Pantone Live, you have to add your user, and this also requires an additional license that is in conjunction with this spectral replacement module. This Pantone Live is applied directly from X-Rite. If you don't have the Pantone Live and you work with normal replacement tables, you have to consider that these tables are specified on the queues. Here you have the different queues, different hot folders from the RIP, and you will have one for the Chemi, another one for the model white, and so on and so on and so on. On every queue, on every hot folder, you have here in the color tables. And basically, the color tables normally are split in different tables. These tables are applying this order from the top to the bottom. And normally you have one table for the normal colors, so for replacing black or 100% or colors that you normally use, and these are specifying spot color names and print values, or RGB values and print values. I, for example, have here a rich black. I want to replace it by a the darker color that you can, or you could change this and say, no, 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 I want this fixed value that I want to print. I'm also adding here that the white should be printed as white, that 100% of black should be printed as 100% of black, and you can add here and add custom colors. So if you want to insert that yellow, for example, will be printed only with just yellow, you say, I want to add that yellow needs to be printed just with yellow. So it needs to be a clean yellow. Then you can add this replacement here. If you don't want, you just leave it. And if you say, okay, you can save this information. Okay, so you have one basic table for making the normal replacements. Then I normally have a different table for choosing the colors that you want to remove from the print. This also depends on how do you want to create the print, if you want to print the marks or not, or if you want to load two different PDFs, or with the same PDF, you will be turning on and off these replacements. It's not the same take one color and remove the color than print this color with white. Because if the line has width, this will be visible. So replacing something by 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, if this thing has an overprint, will be a visible line. If you just remove or omit the thing, it will be removed from the PDF, so it will do not be printed. And here I have the normal, the artios things and the die lines and electrons, so all the marks. I normally removing all the marks if this is the queue for printing the file without die lines. Then we have the optimized color table. Optimized color table, it's a table that contains all the Pantones. Here we have all the Pantones, and these Pantones are being replaced by the optimized multi-channel color value. I normally generate these tables when I made the visits, and they are optimized through the last MIM, through the last calibration. And if you receive one Pantone, and this is specific, this replacement is for just for Cameo, just for Model White, or just for Craft. And at the end, if it's not coded, if it's a generic Pantone, you are loading and using the full table of the Pantones. And this is a standard LAB table. And this replacement table is the same one in all the hot folders, in all the queues. And in this table, you have all the Pantones that exist right now. It's a very big replacement table, so it will take a little bit in being loaded. And here we have it. And here we have all the different Pantones, included the solid coated that you wanna use. Okay. If the queue is not for a specific media, you should turn off this table. So just use your normal tables and the full Pantones, but not the optimized. This optimized table is just for this media, just for this queue. So this is something that really depends if you load the job through one queue or through other queue, that the optimized color table will be one or will be a different one. With the color replacement tables, we have to explain a couple of more things about this color table feature in ColorGATE. First of all is that here we have delta E method that is going to be calculated, use it for doing the calculation of how the color will be printed. This values here of delta E will be using this algorithm. And this is the difference between, this one, for example, the color that I want to print, that is the first one, and the color that I will get, that is the one between brackets. They can be different, especially if the color it's an out of gamut color. Second thing is this option here. This option should be turned on if we are using color replacement tables, and it's telling that if the value is not being replaced, so for example, if I turn off this value, if this LAB on the file is gonna be processed using the full spectrum on the printer. So this is improving the quality, especially in these cases, like for example, this file here contains a spot color. This spot color is not being replaced by the table because it's a strange name, and it has defined in LAB. If I want to use the full gamut of my device for this LAB, this option needs to be turned on. So Delta 2000, because this is how the visual is thing, these things turn on. If I want to change this and I want to activate the replacement, I could be also making a replacement with this CMYK ICC. This means replacing this spot color by a value like if I was making the replacement on the file. So for example, if I was putting this as 0, 100, 100, 0, it will mean like refilling this instead of this with this LAB with this CMYK value. This is if I want to change not a print value, if I want to change a file value. If I made this thing, the replacement will be activated, but this value will pass through the input profile, output profile, and everything. And at the end, we'll finish in a particular print value. This is another replacement. This is not really used at all. And here I also have the color atlas. The color atlas is allowing me to build atlas. So if I don't get the color that I want, I can build squares of colors surrounding it. We will cover this in a different video because it's a special feature, and this will be in conjunction with the Magic Match software, with the color atlas software, sorry. And just that's it, because here I can import entries, export entries, or I can duplicate an entry just if I want to change something on it. Well, with this, we are finishing the second video of color replacement under ColorGATE Productionserver. I hope you will have learned a little bit about it, and we will continue in the next video with additional topics.